Well, welcome to the Women's March Canada podcast, making the equality of women in Canada the new norm. This is episode 49, and we titled it Mamas Matter. My name is Melissa Durrell, and I'm your host. Women's March Canada inspires, unites, and leads the charge of the advancement of women across Canada. Now, please welcome, we've got the sirens going, please welcome this week's guest, Tanya Hayes. Hayles, is that correct? Hayles?
Hayles, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so let me do the intro because this is pretty amazing. So Tanya is the founder of Black Moms Connection. It's a forum that provides Black moms with a safe environment to share their unique cultural experiences. Tanya has an extensive background in event planning and digital media. Very cool, which I guess helped as you built this forum out. And she's been featured in Blavity, Today's Parent, Teen Vogue, HuffPo, Huffington Post, and much, much more. Thank you for joining us on Women's March Canada. I'm excited to chat with you.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm excited.
Yeah, let's start a little bit about, how did you start? I'm assuming you had a baby and you wanted to start talking. Is that how this all started?
Yes. So for me, my son his birthday's coming up. His birthday is on the 24th. He'll be turning 6. But yes, so I had a child, and like most, millennial moms, I say millennial because I don't even know if I'm a real millennial. I joined Facebook mom groups because I know that that's what you have to do these days when you have a child. And, just really trying to find my way and my voice in those spaces. Some of them were based on geography, so a certain part of the city. Some of them were based off of like marital status.
Yeah, we should mention you're in Toronto, which is a big city.
Right, exactly. But I always found that like I wasn't able to really be wholly me. And the story that I tell is I took my son to a splash pad. He was about 18 months, 2 years. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what sunscreen am I going to use on his skin? Because I know when I put sunscreen on me, it's that, it turns me a very ugly shade of gray. And I was like, I wonder if there's sunscreen for black skin. And I knew I wasn't going to really be able to ask that question in general mom group spaces. As it stands, when you talk about mom or mom groups or anything targeting moms, we're really just talking about white mothers. They're not very diverse spaces. So I started BMC really has that, to be able to have these conversations, and it could be as frivolous as hair care products and skincare products, but it was going to be, as he got older, it's how do we navigate the education system? How do we deal with, them being called the N-word? So I knew that we needed to have a space to be able to do that. And it started out generally only has like a GTA space. I wanted people to be able to meet each other in person, okay, I need a sitter, X, Y, and Z. But it's the internet. So folks from outside Toronto found us, and we expanded our, electronic borders to include anyone who wanted to join.
Yeah, I heard your platform grew from 20 Toronto women to over 10,000 now. Is that a fact?
Yeah, so it was crazy. So we started it in 2015, and then in the spring of 2016, we went from 400 to 4,000 in 3 months. Wow. And I didn't quite understand why for the longest time. And it wasn't really until I had ironically enough, another podcast interview with a member who she's like, well, I know exactly why. It was basically at the height of, Black Lives Matter popping up and all the things that were happening in the US. Our US Black moms needed a space to be able to talk about their fears, parenting while Black. And so that is exactly what attributed from that crazy growth. And then because we moderate really heavy, I have an amazing team of admins. We're making sure that we're very inclusive. So like our topics, we want to make sure we're talking to our LGBTQ moms, our moms who are Christian, our moms who are, Jewish, who are atheists, our moms who are very sexual, our moms who are not. We want to make sure that we're really, really inclusive because no group is a monolith. Including Black women.
So how does that work within your platform then? For women that are listening that want to be a part of it, how does it work?
So it starts really with, so Facebook, big shout out to Facebook. I know that sometimes they're very much the devil that we don't like. But they've given us a lot of tools to be able to create spaces. They recognize that groups is now actually one of the most important aspects of their platform, to the point like they have now like conferences for group admins. So now you can ask questions to allow, you know, for some sort of filtering. So we ask like, are you a Black woman who is a mother? And it seems really straightforward, but you would be really surprised at the people who are not Black women or women who try to join the group. And, you know, we just say like, will you abide by our rules? And, you know, they say yes. We go to their profiles to see like,
check it out.
Any evidence that they are really, in fact, Black women who are mothers. And, you know, we let them in. We have a post that like lays, it's very long and extensive, but it lays out who we are, right? We're not here to be anti-white. Right. We're not here to be anti-white. We're not here to be anti-man. We're not here to be anti-anything. We don't tolerate, you know, any sort of trans or homophobic or, you know, religious slamming. Like we really, really moderate really heavily, because you leave people to their own devices and their own type of conversations, it goes left. And then it's representative of the group as a whole.
That's right. And it can go bad fast, can't it? It
can go, and even the threads that you don't think are going to go left. Yeah. And then you're getting tagged in the post and you're like, how did we end here? Yeah. And that's not unique to this particular group. That's just online, period. Right?
100%. Yeah.
So people don't get the fact that, you know, tone is not easily known if you don't know each other personally.
Right.
And, you know, words can be misinterpreted, and then where someone is coming from. So we really try to make sure that we're like, is it educational? Is it entertaining? Is it enlightening? If it's not one of those things, we're not going to post it. And I think that's, you know, proven to be a good credo to stand by. And that's why it's grown.
So it's interesting because you kind of started it to talk about, you know, good sunscreen. What are some of the threads that are happening now?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things, and, you know, these are misconceptions. And so I'm glad I always appreciate the opportunity to talk about and shatter some myths about what BMC is. We're really in there. There's certain things that are universal to motherhood and parenthood, right? What are you packing your kids for lunch?
Yeah.
Why are they outgrowing those shoes so fast? Oh, look, there's a sale on chicken fingers. Like, like those things pop up and they're really important, right? Like back to school time, it was, you know, what apps are you using? X, Y, and Z. So those things, you can go into any mom group. Those are topics of conversation for sure. But then we have things like the daycare decided to redo my daughter's hair without even telling me or notifying me. My son has been called the N-word by a classmate.
Right.
The school is not, you know, engaging with me in the way that they should be respectfully. Those are very unique, difficult situations that Black women have to manage as parents, right? We can't go into a space and be angry, because then we're the angry Black woman. Right. So we always have to hone in our emotions, and that's really difficult when you're talking about your mama cub, right?
I was gonna say,
that's anything to do with your kids, whether it's your hair or the school or whatever it is. You want to go from DEFCON level 1 to DEFCON level 5, but it seems like Black women are not allowed to do that. And so we need a space where we can talk about it, be supported, maybe be that angry Black woman in that space, and then go talk to the principal.
Yeah. Or even, just getting the language right too, right? Sometimes it's just talking with other people, saying like, you know, this is what I want to say. How do I say this in a way that it's that I'm not going to seem like crazy?
We have to rein folks in.
Yeah,
exactly. Sometimes we're just like, be angry here, say these things here, but what you write in your letter or what you say out there, completely different. And I think what's funny is that Serena Williams, who is like one of like my idols, don't really have idols, but I really admire so many things about her. What just happened with her recently at the French Open is so indicative of what Black women go through all the time. As soon as we are angry, then, you know, and demand an apology, and a rightful apology, then we're whiny and we're bitches and all these things. And so we need that is why BMC exists, to be that space where we can be those things and then go take the high road that everyone expects of us outwardly. But sometimes you want to get low and gutter and stoop to the level that other people are stooping to because it's your children. And like all bets are off, all gloves come off when it comes to children. As parents, that's universal.
Yeah.
But again, there's always these shackles that are put on Black women. And so I think it's really important that people really understand that we don't get to just be moms. We still have to be the perfect Black woman who's also a mother, right? There's just so many other parameters and prejudices and stuff put on us that we have to navigate.
How has it changed your life, this platform? I mean, it really started as a small...
How long do we have? It's only a 30-minute podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea when I started a Facebook group 3 years ago that I would be where I'm at. So how has it changed my life? So in 2017, 16, I don't know, the dates are just all a blur. We created a nonprofit so that we can take the conversations from online to offline and really provide in-person tools and resources to empower and educate. So we have an event series called BMC Finlit, which is BMC Financial Literacy. That is super important to me. That's probably like the number one thing that I want to be able to impart, is teaching us better tools on how to manage all levels of our finances, whether it's saving, buying a house, investing, insurance, having a will, all these things that will impact the ability to create generational wealth in the Black community, because it is not something that, especially a lot of the Black community in Toronto is Caribbean based. You don't talk to your parents about money. You don't ask them how much you make. You don't ask them if they have a will. You only find certain things out after they've passed.
No kidding.
And it's been just passed down from generation to generation. And I'm like, the goal of me as a parent is for my son to have better than I had. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to take out life insurance. I learned what a rider was. You're going to have life insurance. I'm going to make sure that there's a plan in place. If something happens to me, that you're not going to be a burden on anybody. You're going to have money to flourish, go to school, travel the world, whatever it is. And that's how it starts. That's how people are able to go buy a house and buy cottages and take gap years and all these things that other communities are able to do and navigate through. Our community hasn't really been able to do that because we don't really think about these things. And no parent wants to think about their mortality, their child's mortality. So Finlit is really important to me. So we have one coming up on the 3rd of November. So that'll be the second installment of that. We just came off of our second annual conference. So we do a full day. We talk about mental health and wellness. We talk about food and fitness, navigating the education system. We had a really powerful session on fostering and adoption. We know that in Ontario and in the GTA specifically, the Black community and CAS, it's not a very good, the numbers are not good, right? We're a low population number, but too many of our kids are in care and then being placed with families that are not Black. And it's just, there's a lot of conversations that we needed to have around that. It was great. It was a really powerful day, and I'm really honored that people trust me to continue to be the captain of the ship.
So I just want to dig a little deeper into that, Tanya, because it's really cool that, you saw that this was something that you needed, a problem that you needed to solve, but then you've now expanded it. How many people are coming out to this, and is it something that you can replicate in cities across Canada?
Yeah, so that's definitely the goal. So we have maybe a few hundred people come out to the events in person. Both Finlits and the summit. This was our biggest summit, but it was also the second. So that is part of the course. And we also we had a really big boost. Grammy Award-winning Toronto native Melanie Fiona was our celebrity keynote. So that was pretty cool to land and to get. The goal, the vision, the dream, I have many for BMC, is to see these things happen and communities pop up in spaces, whether it's chapters, whether they're online and taken offline. So we are starting to do that. We've introduced chapters, like there's a BMC Peel chapter, because to be honest, I don't live in Brampton. I don't know anything about Brampton. Anything Brampton Peel School Board related nothing.
Right.
They can have those conversations. And if someone's like, hey, I need a sitter, or does anyone know about whatever, or there's a sale at this particular grocery store in Mississauga, they can talk amongst each other. That's exactly what I wanted to see. Mm-hmm. And we're starting to also do that in the US because so many of our in-person events are here. I want to make sure that our US moms are not feeling left out of the conversations and the efforts that we're trying to put forth.
I'm curious about that for a sec, if I could just,
sure.
Is there a difference between Canadian women and American women on your platform?
Absolutely.
Yeah, talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think it's funny, and it's sometimes just little things, like when we're talking about mat leave, then these moms are like, where do you live?
12
right?
months, yeah.
Right, we have to explain, right, and this is how this works. And then just cultural, right? Like America is a really large place, and the Black community down there is so splintered into so many different parts. You have the West Indian contingents or Caribbean contingents of Black moms. Yeah. You have the African, like actual African immigrants, and then you have Black Americans who have been there for obviously so long.
Generations.
They have very different, culturally different needs and perspectives and histories. And so, and then you combine that with, we're very similar here. Like, again, the Black community is very much like Caribbean, African, and then, Canadian born, raised, etc. Yeah. And there's not usually too much infighting, but again, like sometimes there are cultural differences, and we honor and celebrate that and recognize that you have to. But a lot of times it's just really, financial conversations and cultural differences. And usually they're fun ones. Like we'll have food posts like, oh, what foods would you never eat? And then like, in the South they have that we're like, what is even that? What are you even talking about? So it's sometimes just like lighthearted type of differences, not like we're battling each other. There's not usually much of that.
Are many of them involved with Women's March in America and in Canada? Is there any talk about women's rights and those kind of things, or is it more kind of kept to the mama side?
We definitely try to, so for context too, we approve posts before they go into the group. So us as the admin team of seven, we make sure that we've gone through the post before it goes in there. So anytime that there is something related to women's rights or women's marches and stuff, it usually does get put into the space. And people will say, hey, are you going? I'm in this city, I'm going, or it passed by, or I passed by and I took my daughter, I took my son. So we do try to have those conversations. What's really important for us to manage as Black women is that, when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to, the overarching umbrella of feminism, we have to talk about their intersections and how they don't necessarily feed each group equally. I'm sure Indigenous women, LGBTQ women, Black women, and other women of color, they're coming at their journeys with women's rights and feminism with very different lenses on even how they're treated by other women. A lot of my moms have been kicked out of other mom groups for even bringing up race. Oh, you're bringing up race, you're being paranoid, you're playing the race card. Wow. And that's from other moms, and that's from other women, right? We're all supposed to be, sisterhood and whatnot. And then you realize there isn't just one sisterhood. And that's fair, but also unfortunate at times.
How can we do a better job then, do you think? Because I would like to see, that sisterhood be strong, acknowledging, of course, that people are coming at it from different places, but that's something I'm always interested in. How can we be better?
That's a great question. I think it always just starts with honest intention to listen. Mm-hmm. I think that people always say that we're going to have conversations, but the listening is not as deep. It's surface level listening. Mm-hmm. I hear you, but, right? And anytime race is brought up in any type of conversation, people automatically get their back up, like where they're being accused of something. Yeah. And it's not always about an accusation. I just want you to recognize and honor the fact that I am a Black woman. Saying you don't see color, first of all, is impossible. If you drive, you see red, yellow, and green, or you would cause accidents all the time. You see color. I'm not saying to not see me as a Black woman. I'm saying don't attribute negative things to my skin color. Those are two very different things. So I think the really important thing is to listen with intention. And anytime something is being put on, I'm an event planner, so my two worlds collide very often. And in this particular space, when it comes to panel discussions, conferences, workshops, those panels have to include women of all walks of life, abilities, cultures, religions. They have to, because too often these conversations are dominated by one group. And then how you talk to a group full of women that look like you is very different than talking to women that don't look like you.
Yeah.
Right? You change your vocabulary. You think a lot more before you speak, right? For me, BMC conference, all of my panelists and my speakers are Black women or women of color on purpose, because I want the conversations to be very two-way, very sisterhood, right? If I had even one white woman on any of my panels, the room would change, because everyone's, again, their lenses are different. A white woman will never experience the same type of discrimination and racism that a Black woman has. They just won't. And so I think we really, like, when I'm looking at mom conferences and anything to do with mom, obviously mom spaces in particular, I look at who these panelists are. And if I see no diversity, I'm not interested in going. And I'm calling it out, and people are being called out. Some people get defensive about it, but I'm like, your job as an event planner is to seek out women who don't just look like you. Don't say you couldn't find any. Don't say that you didn't try hard enough, because there are too many. There's Indigenous women, there's LGBTQ women, there's women of different abilities, there's Muslim women, Christian women, atheist women. There's so many types of intersections. And as long as you, and it's not about being a token. It's about making sure that if you're really serious about changing how the conversation goes, let everyone have a piece of that conversation.
All voices need to be heard equally. I 100% agree with you. Thanks, Tanya. That's a really good point. I know, sorry, we kind of got deep there for a sec, but I really appreciate it. And,
that one's personal to me for sure.
Well, and you've become this, after starting this group, you've now become this thought leader in this space too. Tell me about some of the places you've got to speak. And I mean, you don't always get to, I think, from what I'm understanding, speak to just your crowd. So talk to me about some of the places that you've been able to go and talk about what you do and the topics that you speak on.
Yeah, so it has been really interesting, this journey, because speaking has always been, I'm a storyteller.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
And I think like event planning is a form of storytelling. I do some freelance writing. Clearly that's telling a story. And I think speaking is the same thing. So for me, just being able to share the process of building an online community and taking it offline. So that's been really helpful, because that's the digital and social media part, right? Everyone, it's like when the group hit 5K, people were like, how are you going to monetize it? Everyone was so anxious for me to figure out a way to monetize it. I'm like, that's not why I started it. Yeah. And I'm not just the founder, I'm a member. So if I'm going to monetize it, it's got to be things that make sense. I'm not selling another t-shirt. No one needs another t-shirt. What I need is some childcare. So let me open a childcare center. That's why, like, one of my goals is to open a childcare center. I'm like, you don't need a t-shirt. You need a place to drop your children off, and that's reasonably affordable. So yeah, other places that I've been able to talk. I did, what was really interesting was Ryerson hosted a white privilege conference in the spring of this year.
Wow, that would be great. Because that's exactly what you're talking about. You got to get into, and we have to have these difficult conversations.
Yes. And, there was of course, and I'm sure Ryerson saw more of it than I did, as a speaker. There was tons of pushback because people don't want to believe that it exists. And, there's a lot of gaslighting, and there's a lot of, wanting to head in sand type of situation. But I'm like, Black people didn't come up with the concept of race, but yet we are the ones who are constantly dealing with the consequences of said concept, right? It was created to make sure that we are seen as inferior, right? Science is like, if we study the history of science, like, oh, they have big heads, and big lips and big features, but they're not as smart. Why don't their brains, like, that is actual history. Like, we're not making that, I'm not gaslighting. I'm not playing the race card when I talk about science. And when I talk about, vaccines being used and Black women being used for practice. Yeah. Even the concept of breastfeeding, why it's such a big deal to encourage Black women to breastfeed is because historically, Black women would breastfeed the children of their slave masters. Like, no one cares about that history because, oh, it was so long ago. But when you have to deal with the consequences of that throughout generations and generations and generations, you can't just say, oh, well, right, look at the indigenous peoples of our country. They're still dealing with the consequences of residential schools, and how long ago was that?
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? They still live on reserves and pay $35 for Tide and have no access to clean water. And we live in Canada. Like, there's no place in Canada. We have the largest source of clean water, and there's people in this country who don't have access to clean water, right? And then they're not being invited to conversations about how, CAS is quick to take away the kids, the whole mother risk problem at Sick Kids Hospital. Like, we don't talk about those things because, oh, well, you play the card. And there's no card. If there was a card that I could play that could potentially give me a leg up, I would love to play it. But this race card never allows me to win a hand. I still have to work. And
so talk to me, did you get to actually have these kind of conversations at this conference?
Yeah. So
wow.
that was really, it was a small session. And so for me, what was, it's about the visuals, right? So I went to Google, created this slideshow. I went to Google and I Googled mom. And I urge anyone who's hearing this, watching this, go Google images and Google mom or Google mommy or mother, and see what pops up. Yeah. Now, this could be because we're in Canada, I'm sure the search might be different if we were in China, if we were in Africa. But the fact still remains is in North America, as diverse as it is, as soon as we Google mom, it's all white women.
Huh.
And so I'm just like,
it doesn't reflect you, and it doesn't reflect your community. And
there's 7 billion people in the world, and not all of them came from white women. So it's just a matter of like, that is what I'm dealing with as a Black woman, as a Black mother, and why I'm always going to take the opportunity to go to different things. So we went to the racialized, maternal health conference, just really having different conversations with different podcasts and different pockets of people. I do have goals and dreams to attend Mom Summit 2.0. It's a huge event that takes place in the US. It's kind of like one of my Mount Everest vision boards.
Yeah. It's your TED Talk. I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think it's just a matter of like, for me to get onto that stage in a room full of women that probably don't look like me, I would probably be, I'd be the chocolate chip in the cookie, to say, this is my experience as a Black mother, and you do not get to ignore it or discount it, just because it makes you uncomfortable.
Hell, and I think that good for you.
There's so many things, just if you look at how our society is going right now with who gets elected and the policies that are getting pushed through, it's because everyone's being made uncomfortable. There used to be a status quo, we didn't care about representation of children, culturally in cartoon shows and in books and toys. I grew up like all my dolls were white, and it wasn't that big of a deal, but wasn't it? And so now the fact that there's a push for Black dolls, why do they have to have Black dolls? Because little Black girls want to play with girls that look like them. Yeah. And it's so small, but so big. Right? And so I think we have to get comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable. The way that things have gone for the past 100 years is not and cannot, for the sake of our kids, be the way that it goes for the next 100.
100% agree with you. You're amazing. I could talk to you all day, but I totally want to respect your time here. So I want to do 2 more things with you. The first is, I think one of the best things that we can do in the women's movement is shout out the people that have helped us get where we are. And so I just want to give you the opportunity. Is there anyone that I always feel like you got to pull the person up above you, and then we keep pulling everybody up? So who do you want to shout out to?
Oh gosh. So definitely like the core would be the BMC admin team. Everyone's just like, oh, what's going on with the group? I'm like, I don't run it. I'm busy trying to build the nonprofit side. So I really leave the group in the hands of 6 amazing employers, sisters, aunties, who keep the group going. My friend Emily Mills, who runs her own network, How She Hustles, she invited me. I got to meet Michelle Obama and Justin Trudeau's wife, Sophie, like as a result of just our relationship and building. My friends who listen to me cry and and the times when I want to just pull the plug and walk away from everything, definitely, yeah. And my family, like I have really strong women, my mom, my sisters, they inspire me to keep going.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad you have them. How can people find you? How we want to follow you? I want to follow you on Twitter. I want to follow you on Instagram. I want to follow you on Facebook. How do I find you?
Okay, so Black Moms Connection is pretty easy. So there's a website, Black Moms Connection. The Facebook group is Black Moms Connection. There's a public page where, we post things that we think are, relevant to us. Again, Black Moms Connection. Twitter is Black BLK Moms Connect. And Instagram is Black Moms Connection as well. So, we try to engage on the different platforms in different ways. And then for me, you can find me at Hayles Creative. So Hayles Creative Elements is my actual business. So Hayles Creative on all social platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Tanya. I mean, you're amazing. And I'm so glad that you got to chat today.
So much.
I'm going to get off this podcast and start following you. I'd love to book you to speak at any event that I run. And I just wish you great success and you keep doing what you're doing. We need you. We definitely need you in this country to keep talking and having these conversations and opening everybody's eyes.
Thank you. Thank you so much to Women's March for having me and for this, great chat. It's always a great opportunity to share and hopefully, if we can change a couple people's I never thought about that, then I've done my job.
Yeah, you sure did. Oh, and I also want to thank everybody who tuned in to listen. Your comments are welcomed and encouraged. Our mission across Canada is to stand together in solidarity with our partners and our children for the protection of our rights, our safety, our health, and our families, recognizing that our vibrant and diverse communities are the strength of our country. Please subscribe to our Women's March Canada channel and receive updates every time we upload a new podcast, which is usually on Fridays. This is the Women's March Canada podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Women's March CDA and on our website at womensmarchcanada.com. I'm Melissa Durrell, and I'm wishing you a fantastic day. Take care.
Bye.